Right, the 7 minutes is over. Thank you. Some comfort and relief. I really appreciate it. Particularly for those of you that have just joined new companies. And a question, that definitely is more something that happens behind the scenes are individuals looking at developing their leadership career and where to think of going next. And I just wondered if any of you had any points for your criteria, one or two key criteria that you've used to ensure that you pick, the leadership role that's right for you in the next stage of your growth. Who wants to pick that up first? Mike, you nodded. Oh.
So sorry, just to be clear, what we look for our own.
Yeah, when you're picking a role, you're picking a company. What's your criteria that you're basing the decisions on?
Well, for me, I've done regional roles. The last two major roles that I've had, which have been U.S. companies, and running the full go-to-market for EMEA and APAC. For me, the next move, I wanted to run I wanted to be the global functional leader for the sales organization. And so I was really targeting European companies in my search and spoke to a number of them. I didn't consider any US companies over the last few weeks and months that I was looking. So for me, that was the criteria. It was a change in the scope of the role that I was looking for. I love startup and growth stage companies. I've never worked for an IBM in my career or an Oracle or a Salesforce. Who knows? Maybe I'd love it, but I love the fast pace and the thrill of that really high growth early phase, and that was important to me as well.
Thank you, Natalie.
So I think actually some of the things that Bruce said, people for me is a big thing. So I think. Spoke to a number of different companies. I think you get a sense of culture and their values very quickly. I actually joined IBM through an acquisition, so I kind of came through a culture. When you're in that startup mentality and you build that kind of the values and everything else. So for me, people was a big thing. And then I think the second thing, similar to Mike, when you've had the opportunity to do local roles or regional roles and build on your experience, it is being able to have that global responsibility. In my instance, it was actually to move away from a US company too. It was nice to have a change from not having a US headquartered company because it has a different dimension. So I think those would be the things, certainly, and something where, it is growing fast and you can immediately see, that hopefully you're making an impact on the business. Those are the things for me.
Cool. Thank you. Anything to add, chaps, before I ask the next question?
I think I agree with what Natalie and Mike said. I think it's really important. I think culture is probably the most important for me, because if it's not the right culture, then it's never going to work. I think you've got to get excited about the company. So they've got to be doing something. It doesn't have to be the most exciting product, but you've got to get excited about where they're going, what they're doing or something. Otherwise, you're going to really struggle to engage and stuff like that. And then I think you've got to really like, whether it's the leadership team or the board, whoever you're reporting to or working with on a regular basis, you've got to go, can I work with them? Can I respect them? Can I learn from them? And do I get excited about doing things with them? And I think they're the key things I looked at when considering Brightpearl, because I stepped from a large corporate back into the kind of growth stage company.
Excellent. We've talked to all of you were talking about kind of some of your frameworks and basics, going back to basics. A lot of the leaders are coming out to the end of the financial year, closing out a year, thinking about planning for 2021, and have had to adapt and now reflect on a challenging year for many different reasons. Are there just some top of mind thoughts or direction of travel or basics that you've had to remind your focus again, on people, on pipeline, on customers? Natalie, you were talking about showing love to your customers. So any points on kind of a focus area and those basics that you're looking to focus on again for 2021?
Yeah, I think Bruce made a really good comment about Medic. You need to be following and qualifying deals much more, because there's much more people who are window shopping, You know, some people have got time at home, so they're not going through it. So you need to be qualifying really hard throughout the process. I think that's a really good thing. It's a great way of qualification, and you should be using it. And making sure we're always looking at honing our playbooks. You don't build your playbooks and then put them in the shelf and never use them. You've got to be adapting them constantly and changing them constantly, because the market changes, and we look at it and work together to change the playbooks, and we consider our competitors. You know, one of our competitors brought out a thing against us. We then refine our playbook. You know, you have to be doing that, and if you're doing that, I think you'll be okay. There's many other things, but I think I really like Bruce's thing on Medic. It's really important, really important.
And just to expand on that, I think it's laying out the priorities for the year with a level of kind of realism, because I think obviously coming into 2020, you know, everyone had ambitions that may not necessarily have been achieved. So I think that mission statement of this is what we're doing, I think often teams get confused by the we're going to change, but you keep on changing things, you keep on moving things around. And the reality is you need to be adaptable to kind of making sure, but you have to stick to your mission. You have to keep communicating. We're doing this to bring back to our mission. You have to keep on bringing it back and reinforcing it as you go through, so that people understand that it's not just chopping and changing and we can do anything. It's about evolving the strategy to meet that mission.
Bruce, have you got something to add?
I think with 2021 in mind, it's probably equally applicable now as you go into 2021. Some of the places that you sell. So, you know, in our business model, we've got lots of verticals we can sell into. We've certainly withdrawn a lot from travel, you know, naturally, because, you know, you've got to think smart, but there's less obvious ones than that in the COVID sort of period that, you know, you're trying to adapt in terms of just where you lean in a little more in terms of places you can help, and also big opportunities of, you know, some businesses like CPG are really trying to move online, you know, in a big way, because they used to go through distribution. So look for opportunities, and as well as that, look for places maybe where you don't want to go. So one of our travel customers once said, Bruce, I don't think I'm going to be able to buy anything else this year because currently I've got zero revenue in my business. That's, you know, that's a good clue that, you know, maybe that's a tough place to get investment. And then the second thing is just thinking about levels. You know, I think as we're selling and engaging, everything's moved. So everything's moved up, or everything's moved more complicated in this period, right? But it's still something we've got to demystify and try and sell into. So it's more complicated and maybe a higher level of control than ever before.
So, Mike, just before you respond, I'm going to ask you all in a moment just to share your parting thought, or, you know, inspiration or thinking that you want to share with the audience. Mike, did you have any thoughts on that?
Well, for me, you know, having just joined this company, they are culturally they're an office first business. It's obviously had a big change this year with the pandemic, so it's going to be adjusting to this new world that we're in. The company has a lot of, the sales organization has just a ton of really young people in it who are very good, but they were benefiting from being in the office. So for me, it's just going to be thinking about how we can continue to build the culture and build the teams. We'll be doing a lot of hiring over the, you know, the coming months, but doing that in a remote way. I mean, I did meet the CEO of this company and a couple other members very briefly for dinner. Other than that, I've met nobody, and I think it's probably similar to a lot of the folks taking new roles with you know, a virtual interview process.
Thank you, Mike. So just before I gather your comment, just for the audience, I'm just going to, after we wrap up this panel, we'll then walk through those top 50 sales leaders to watch for 2020. And this is the fourth year we're doing. And then there is some networking available for, you know, I appreciate you fitting us in this afternoon. Just to say an observation, interesting. I mean, we're still, the word actually, and I'm now going to use it, COVID hasn't been used much during today's event, and I'm really grateful for that. You know, we're clearly all living in different times, but I think this is an amazing example of leaders that have kind of adapted and got on and are delivering. And so I think it's really impressive to hear and see, because when I started moving our physical events online at the beginning of the year, you know, there was so much uncertainty and people were trying to come up with ideas of how to adapt, but not really have lived through it. So actually, kind of wanted to reflect on that moment, and it's great to see the positive stories, anecdotes, and kind of visions for future growth that you and your businesses have. So final parting thought that you can impart with us, Natalie.
Excellent. I have to go first. I think in a crazy kind of way, I think, still trying to have a bit of fun in all of this like craziness, which I know sounds really weird because you're doing it very virtually. And to be honest, I've had enough of Zoom pub quizzes and blah, blah, blah. But I think it's, sort of lightening up a little bit in some of it. And I know we've all got business goals to achieve and all that, but I think it's important because again, it goes to mental health and our, I think it's trying to actually build that into how how we go forwards is, would be my passing comment.
Excellent. Nick?
I think that the name says it all. I think sales confidence, building the sales team's confidence is the most important thing. Keep building that confidence and they will, as a team, achieve. Build that teamwork between sales and marketing and you'll do well.
Awesome. Mike?
Just following my point earlier, we're heading into a new fiscal year, or a lot of us are anyway, and it's going to be very different from what we've seen in the past. So it's just being open and flexible, and managing what will be still probably a strange environment for the sales organizations, but you got to continue to do your planning. You got to continue to provide great leadership, and who knows, maybe someday things will return to normal, but I doubt it will be anytime soon.
Yeah, let's see. Bruce?
So I still lean back to the people. I think we've got to continue to focus on adding value to them. Our job in part of this is to help them go forward, and if we can look after them and add value to them and keep them pointing forward and not be too distracted by what's going on more than they are, I think that's the biggest and the hardest job from behind the screen. So I think if we can do that and people feel like they've gained something in a month or a quarter that they didn't have before in your team, you can keep moving forward and winning.
Amazing. I really, really appreciate each of you putting time into this. I appreciate you've had packed schedules, and it makes a difference. And there will be a full recording so you can watch back on how you delivered today. Thank you again to our audience. I'm now going to walk through this year's top 50 to watch. You guys can step back behind the scenes, grab a coffee, and those that hang around after the top 50, there will be some networking. The show closes at 4. No champagne, no dancing, no hugging, no kissing. None of that. But hopefully some good times. And thank you for being part of today's event.